Hey, it's Candice Quinn with Contract Tag, and I want to tell you a story about an attorney I worked with who straight up lied about actually being licensed to practice in any state. This person was in the legal department, working on legal matters and representing himself as an attorney, and he wasn't a lawyer. Now, I found this out through some investigative work because I was curious. And I found out that while he did have a JD, he had not actually maintained his bar license in any state in the United States. When I found out, I reported it to leadership and HR, and you know what happened? Absolutely nothing. Literal crickets. I never got a response. They didn't fire him. They didn't investigate. They just ignored it. And if you've ever blown the whistle on something shady at work and just felt like you were screaming into the void, well, this one's for you. I'm going to tell you the reasons why companies choose to ignore fraud rather than to confront it head on. Reason number one, it's pretty expensive to fix. When you report fraud, you're not just flagging a problem, you're handing the company a whole mess that's going to cost lots of time and money in order to correct. Companies hate spending money on problems that they didn't see coming, i.e. they didn't budget for. So it's not surprising that a company's wallet is not ready to open just because you waved the fraud flag. In my case, this person had been working with the CEO for years and they had a pre-existing relationship. If the company admitted that he wasn't licensed to practice, the CEO would also be admitting that he was basically in collusion on this effort. And also the company would have to start reviewing everything this attorney touched or have an outside firm review it. They could even have to unwind deals or notify counterparties. That's not just expensive, that's a PR nightmare. And it's a huge potential liability. For the business to admit that they had an unlicensed person practicing law, that's a really big step to ask them to take. Instead of dealing with it, they actually buried their heads in the sand and hoped it would go away. They made this attorney's life a little bit harder, hoped that maybe he'd look around for another career, but they didn't actively do anything. After all, addressing the fraud would mean admitting it happened in the first place, and what company wants to do that? That's a huge red flag if they're looking for a acquisition or to be acquired. There's no right answer for the company in this situation. It doesn't lead to anything good. The business calculates the risk, and if the cost of doing nothing is better than the actual intended cost of doing something, well, they're going to do nothing. Reason number two, you're actually, as the whistleblower, more replaceable than the offender. And that's really sad, but it's the truth. So this company, once I reported the fraud, they just made my life a little bit more difficult. They didn't do anything that would qualify as retaliation, but they definitely gave me more undesirable work. They definitely didn't respect my opinions as much. I had lost some credibility with the leadership of the company. And while we all say the squeaky wheel gets the grease, at businesses, the grease costs money. And so the squeaky wheel only gets the grease if the squeaky wheel is worth the grease. And most time, whistleblowers aren't seen as loyal, and so they aren't worth the grease. If they investigated my claim, they could find a bigger problem. Maybe HR actually dropped the ball during hiring and didn't do enough due diligence, and that would look bad for that team. Maybe it's just the entire way the company is run, but no matter what the reason is, they can't reward you for doing the right thing without admitting they did something wrong. So their answer is to isolate you, freeze you out. Suddenly, you're the difficult one, the one that can't work with others. You're the problem instead of what you reported being the problem. While you're getting freezed out, the person committing the fraud, well, they're just getting welcomed in more because they see that door and they take it, and that's how that kind of person operates, right? Fixing the fraud is complicated, but freezing you out, that's easy, and hoping you'll leave for another opportunity where you know there's not, or you don't know there's fraud involved, that sounds so much better to the company. It's backwards, but it's the game, and if you don't understand the game, well, then you're not gonna win. Number three. Plausible deniability is the company's best friend. If they don't investigate, they can't find actual fraud. And if they can't find actual fraud, then there's nothing to fix. And no one can say they actively knew there was fraud. As long as the company can say, we didn't know, or we were starting to look into it, they have an out that can at least protect them a little bit. In my situation, once I reported this person, HR could have launched an investigation, they could have suspended this person, they could have done a number of things, but by doing nothing, they were basically approving the fraud of the person. Instead of starting an investigation, they just keep kicking the can down the road because it saves them from having to actually admit they knew something and failed to take action. As long as they can claim ignorance or say it's still under review, they're off the hook. They didn't actually know anything. Meanwhile, you're the one who looks crazy or vindictive. You look like the lunatic when the company is the one who's just not taking any action on this fraud. Reason number 4, institutional reputation matters more than individual ethics. And while this one seems really hard to swallow, I think we all can recognize it's true. Companies care more about protecting their reputation than protecting what's right. And think about it. If word gets out that their legal department is being run by a non-attorney, that's not going to look good for the company or any deals that they're involved in. It's ultimately going to damage their brand. And the company can't have that. They report to shareholders and board members who are not going to accept that they made this giant misstep. So they have to cover it up in order to protect their reputation. And the best way to cover it up is to pretend like it didn't happen at all. And the kicker is that the higher up on the chain the fraud occurs, the more likely it is to be covered up, because we all know what happens when an executive does something unethical. That gets all over the news. But if a lower level employee does something like that, they just get fired and it's fine. So of course a company is going to protect their head of legal from being revealed as not a licensed attorney, because it's going to make them look really dumb if they don't. Senior leadership doesn't want to look bad themselves, so of course they aren't going to admit that they may have made a giant mistake. The person who reported it, well, you end up collateral damage. Or in my case, I ended up collateral damage. I ruined the working relationship. I had no credibility anymore, and nothing actually changed. Reason number 5. The company is banking on the whistleblower giving up. Companies know that most people who report fraud will eventually stop being persistent about it and just give up. Fighting gets to be exhausting, and it's easier just to move on. And that's exactly what I did. While I stuck it out for another year or so, hoping that the company would see some change or there would be some type of exit and leadership would change, that didn't happen. And eventually I got tired of working with this person that I knew wasn't an attorney, who didn't know what he was doing, wasn't doing things correctly, and I just found another role for myself. And statistically, that actually works. Most whistleblowers end up leaving on their own accord, not as a result of retaliation. They leave just because the company didn't do anything to fix the fraud and they want a better work environment. The result is that the fraud gets buried and the fraudster stays employed, while the whistleblower may end up having to move backwards in their career or have their own reputation damaged. Never go to war with your own employer, because you're going to lose. The company is always going to have more funds and more resources to fight the war than you do. So what do you do if you find yourself in a situation where there is some type of fraud and you want to blow the whistle? Well, first, start documenting everything. Whether it's notes, emails, or screenshots, keep track of everything. 2, don't expect the company to do the right thing. In fact, expect them to do the exact opposite. And 3rd, start looking for your exit. Get your resume in line, update your LinkedIn, and get ready to move to another position. Because regardless of what happens if you blow the whistle on fraud, you aren't going to be the hero and you're not going to rise within that company. Your career at that company is going to be done. So start finding the new place to move now. Now, if you've ever experienced a situation like this, go ahead and share it with me in the comments below. If you are looking to make a move because you are currently in a position where you suspect fraud or you know there's fraud, then go ahead and schedule a free strategic call with me. Let's discuss your options and how you can best handle this. The link to schedule a call is in the pinned comment and the description below. Bye for now, hackers.